Hello everyone, this is Parvati Tripathi here from Paro's Craftology. Today we'll be doing a DIY mixed media MDF box alteration in antique finish. The first step is to prime the box. I'm using a white gesso here. Next, I'm applying a coat of dark brown impasto paint. So the shade I'm using here is dark chocolate. If you have a dark brown shade of chalk paint, that is the best option. I didn't have it, so I went ahead using impasto. Next, I'm using chalk paints from CrafTreat. This shade is Tempting Teal. Teal is one of my favorite colors and I wanted my box to be in that teal shade. The technique that I'm using here is sponge dabbing technique. This is best for the best coverage and an even coating. Use a generous amount of chalk pen. Just double coating it. Similarly, I have coated the entire box, and now on to the next step. I want the box to have a worn out, vintagey look. So I'm using sandpaper here to sand out the excess or the chalk paints and to reveal some of that brown shade that we had beneath, just to give it that, an old vintagey look. The same process done across the box, and that's the finishing that I've got. This process is a bit messy because you'll have chalk paint powdered all around, but it's worth it. Now I'm distressing the corners using a gold shade. This will actually give it a kind of a royal look. So yeah, why not? The only thing to remember doing this technique is that your dauber or the brush that you're using has to be dry and no amount of water is to be added to your paint. Just doing the same process inside and out of the box. And now to give it that worn out look, I am using archival ink and distressing all the edges. The shade of archival ink I am using here is Coffee. It's one of my favorites because it gives that vintage effect. Very nice. one thing I noticed while doing this project was the coverage of CrafTreat chalk pens. I mean, the more I was rubbing, the more it was coming out, and I was thinking I just applied 1 or 2 coats and still so much. So the coverage of CrafTreat chalk pens are just awesome, guys. It's a must try if you have not tried it till now. Okay, so on to the next step. I am using some clay embellishments here, and I am covering it using black gesso. And now to add some details to our box, I am using a clear stamp from Finnabair and some archival ink. Our box was completely plain before, and now it has got some awesome detailing. Now using the border stencils, this was one of the release from August releases, and it's one of my favorites, and I was so happy to see this one in my DT kit. Thank you so much, Priya, for sending me this. So the technique we are using here is just dry brushing using stencil brush. Now the tip to keep in mind is never use excess of paint. Always rub off the excess of paint if you have any, because if you have excess of paint in your stencil brush, it is going to bleed and you won't get a crisp stenciling done. Look at that. I'm speeding up the video because it's the same process that I'm following, and I repeat the same process on all 4 sides of the box, and I'm super happy about it. So the 4th side I left just so that the 3rd side is completely dry before I do this side, and inside one also is a stencil that was a August release, and this one here would be our hero stencil because this I'm using on the lid, and here again I'm using some awesome techniques, some shadowing to be done here. So watch this carefully. One layer done. Now just keep the stencil slightly towards the right and then apply a generous coat of your texture paint. The texture paint I'm using here is from Finnabair. It's a light modeling paste. Once you remove, you will see that it's giving a perfect shadow. Now because my entire box is in that antique finish, I didn't want my girl to be completely black and white, so I decided to go in adding some more gold paint over that. That's how it looks now. Now to add some paints to our embellishments, again the technique used here is dry brushing. adding some detail, adding some lip shade to our girl. I'm using the shade Red Velvet from CrafTreat again. Now painting the smaller flowers using the shade Bubblegum Blast. This was my initial plan that I'll go with this shade. Later on, I was not very happy with this shade. I just didn't think that it was complementing. So I did change this shade, and you will see that adding our embellishments, ensuring that there is enough space on all three sides. As I had mentioned earlier, I was not happy with the color of the flower, and so I decided to go ahead and paint them using velvet red again. The gold that I used, I thought it was a bit too blingy, so I decided to add some darker tone of wax. I'm using Finaware wax here. The shade I'm using is Firebird, so it was giving a nice deep shade, and I was trying to transition it from a darker shade to a lighter shade so that it looks vibrant enough. Next, for the smaller flowers, I'm creating a nice tiara for our girl. Finally, adding some stamping details to the lid as well. I should have ideally done this before I stuck the embellishments, but I didn't, so added it later on, and I'm super happy with the results. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the entire process video. If you liked it, do like this video, leave your comments, and if you're inspired by it and if you're going to make something, do tag us. Till we meet again, it's Parati signing off. Bye bye.